And this is my presentation, and you can find it online at this URL here. And it's a repo, and the too long didn't read is this link here to the map of what I'm doing. So I teach mapping at New Maps Plus, and so we have a couple New Maps Plus folks here. And when we map on campus, this is what happens, right? Mapping is serious business, but it's actually a video our college creative team put together promoting this online program where we do open source mapping online, and you can follow this link to find more information about our program. And we do have ethics. We had a presentation yesterday by Rich Donahue, and we do put ethics in mapping. But this presentation, it's advertised as command line mapping. We will do a lot of command line stuff, but I like to think of it as more of a visual appreciation of the sky. That is sunsets, sunrises, and sensors. I had to make it alliterative there, so. But really, sunsets, that's not too bad, right? Presentation. Yeah, so we're going to take a journey through some ways of capturing sunsets, and sunrises. We're going to try to continuously process high-resolution imagery where we can find it. We want to make it public, and where appropriate, we want to make geotiffs that you can download. Animated GIFs are always fun, and raster tile sets that you can ingest in other mapping applications. And so the outline of the presentation is the origins. We all have an origin story. GOES 16, it's a satellite that is now providing that high resolution imagery. And then, of course, we're going to download or provide. I'll show how we can download it. And then, if we have time and we survive, we'll try to demo. Now, is that demolish or demonstrate? We'll find out. And so the origins came a couple years ago. My first NACIS was 2006, and about this time, I'm looking at weather imagery, just weather information. I was teaching weather to undergraduates, and so we have a lot of webcams, a lot of satellite imagery, and so I'm thinking, how can we just collect this and also look at sunsets and sunrises on demand? And as you know, here in Tacoma, we're not really seeing many sunsets or sunrises because of the weather, but I can go look back home and see my sunsets and sunrises, and that gives me a small amount of comfort. Well, 2007, we had these high availability National Park Service air monitoring webcams, and they're always on, they're mostly always available, and they update about every 5 to 10 minutes, and so I say, well, let's just do every 15 minutes, and then make a weather station. That is, provide it so folks can see it. It's just HTML with some gathering, or I'm sorry, it's a web page, and this is for the National Park, Great Smoky Mountains. It has a very distinct weather pattern because of its high elevation near a very moist air mass, the Gulf of Mexico. So you can check out that weather station. So the tech stack is pretty simple. We have a server. It's always up. It's always running. And we have some command line utilities, basic stuff. They go way back, grep, sed, and others. ImageMagick, which is another open source free image utility, and it's command line. And the whole thing is we wrap all these commands up in a script that we tell our cron scheduler to do it every 15 minutes. And so that's the stack. And what can go wrong, right, when we look at this stack? And so let's take some baby steps, kind of unpack this, because the command line environment is pretty unique, right? So I'm doing bash. And so we put that shebang up at the top and say, hey, this is our language. And so this syntax is kind of interesting. So this is what Mark did earlier. We want to remove everything. We don't want to keep this stuff on our hard drive, except for what we're presenting. And so this essentially says force pattern match all JPEGs, right? So that's pretty easy syntax. Well, the date function has yet a different syntax where we build a date string and we put it in a file we call date, because it's important if we're doing this every 15 minutes. We want to keep track of what's the most current. And then we want to go out and grab, we use another function, wget or curl, and we go grab that JPEG, and then we do yet another function, that's the ImageMagick, and it creates a module, or a program montage. And so what becomes tricky when you start working with command line is distinguishing your data. Here it's pretty simple because we saw above, and that, of course, distinguish that from the actual parameters of the program, the code itself. So code and data, keeping it separated. And so that's currently what the Great Smoky Mountains look like. If only we could get a touch of that clear weather here in Tacoma. And so I thought, well, hey, that's yesterday, or I'm sorry, that's one image. Let's see if we can aggregate these guys into, a animated GIF. So key, of course, is the date stamp, keeping everything ordered. And here we do a little command line, variable expansion. Well, we create a variable from a function, and then we can expand it here such that we append the hour and minute in 24-hour time at the end of this image. And so now we can easily sort them and then build that animated GIF, which is this guy, where we list the contents of a directory, one file per line, and then we go back to the image magic. We convert it with a delay of 50 milliseconds. That will expand that list. We'll loop through it endless number of times, and we produce the Look Rock GIF. We create another date stamp here, and we create a directory from that, and then we copy the contents of one directory into another, then we can archive it. And so we can go back in time and look at it. And so what does that look like? Well, that is yesterday in the Great Smokies, and there is a link up here. I won't dive into it, but this goes back 3 years. And so you pick your favorite day. People pick their birthday. You know, what did it look like in the Smoky Mountains on your birthday? And that does give me a bit of comfort, thinking that I can, and I've been to these places, and it's pretty cool when you can feel that area from the image that you see because you've been there. And so we do have an issue. We've got the storage. We have to save all these guys, and you can see here's the date format. And just that one image, this is from January, it's 19 megs. Here's one that's 30 megs. And so it adds up, right? So there is a kind of limit you want to host these. And so one archive, I try to keep 3 years online for the animated imagery. 1 year tops out about 8 gigs. And you can go check out that yesterday's archived there. And plus, you got a lot of sunsets and sunrise you can go through. So, okay, so the summary from that I want to bring up is that these are old school tools, and the data sources are pretty old in the sense that they don't change much, but they're remarkably stable and error proof, right? These the image magic, the command line tools, they really haven't had a problem, and I've had this up for 10 years, and I've only had a couple changes that I've had to make. But it's not elegant, for instance. This is scraping. This is to get the weather observations, right? So I'm downloading this unique URL, which I cut off here. I'm just giving an example. I created a Smoky's text file, and you might recognize this is some serious scraping, and that goes on and on and on and on, where I'm replacing all of these HTML elements with what I want to put in. Thankfully, Dark Sky and other APIs come along, and you can just more easily get that data. 2017, I call the year of the satellite. And so this is when we get that GOES 16 satellite. It becomes available. You can download it pretty easily. And AWS has made a commitment to big data to put this stuff up for free. And so if you have an AWS CLI, client command line utility, you can go up on AWS and pull down full disks. You can pull down all the GOES data that goes back a couple years, I believe. And so a little background on the satellite. It has 16 spectral bands. We pull out the red, the veggie, which isn't green, and the blue to create black and white. So the black and white image here is higher resolution than the other bands. And when we combine these with GDAL, we don't get an RGB image. It's different. It's very green, at least in my recipe. It's very green. So let's take a look at the additional tech required. So GDAL, been around a long time. It's a command line geospatial processing utility. Of course, AWS CLI. And we need Python now, so I installed many Conda, and this is all on a Linux server that we're installing this, and we need to get, I run the package manager to get GDAL installed and maintained through Conda. And so the idea was to create a Kentucky view. That was the first thing. We have to take these netcdf format files off AWS, and we have to convert them. So we're using GDAL, well, we're using this Amazon Web Service command line utility to access, and then we're using GDAL to project and convert. It takes a little bit of time, and just for Kentucky, we get a 2 megabyte image, and for, that's what I call pseudo true color, 500K, because it's smaller resolution. And I try to do it processed every 15 minutes, so someone can go up and take a look at it. And so this is just an example of that command line utility. I won't run it, maybe at the end, but I'm going up, accessing, this is the folder on this S3 instance where you can go in and grab your advanced baseline imager and get your day of the year, that's the hour, so that is today, we're 291 days into the year, and just get all of those images. And so you can go back in time, and it's an amazing resource, and not just this, but we have Landsat and NAPE imagery, just tons of data. And so the conclusion on the view, and I'll try to show at the end, it is pretty computationally intense to convert the netcdf format to a TIFF. But you're not running your computer, you're running up on the web, so you can walk away and do whatever you want. And I'm only using only a portion of the data, right, just Kentucky. So I said, well, hey, in Kentucky, let's throw some more juice at these chips up on the internet and see if we can pull down and do the entire raster tile set for the contiguous states, right? So if it only takes a little bit of time to do Kentucky, and it's not on my computer, but I'm running a server, then maybe we can do the entire US. And so no more scraping, all Python script, and pause it at Kentucky sunset. And so let's take a look at the Python before we jump in. And so these are the modules I'm importing, and so we need this obviously to get the time, and then this to get the sunset time for Kentucky, because there's no need to run these when the sun's down. And then I do a lot of sub-process, which allows me to run command line through Python. And of course JSON, and to get my time zone there. And so now I'm building my time zone, I'm localizing it, and there's been some, we live in Lexington, and you might know that in geography we do have rivalries, you know, in Louisville. So I'm using Louisville for our, for the time of sunset for Lexington. And so building some time to get the year, day, minute, and so this is universal time coordinated because that's what Go 16 is in, and so I have to convert to that. And so now I'm saying, hey, if it's sunrise, I want to grab, or if it's, you know, before sunrise or after sunrise, before sunset, I'm going to pull down these channels and convert my whole program to the day mode. And here's that other remove all the previous runs, and that's in that's a string, and I just run it through this sub process here, and I can verify that I, in fact, deleted all of that stuff. And now this is kind of a bash loop that goes into the AWS data and pulls it down, pulls a list down, and then I get the most recent list here, the desired data. And this is the translating here. I'm taking that net CDF format, I'm looping through, and then I'm getting stats as well because I have to create the band. You know, so these are all that red, veggie, blue bands, and to create a RGB, I have to find the basically, you know, tone, you know, tone balance, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to get the images to stack together and look good when we combine them. And then we do some cutting and projecting to get it web Mercator, so we can view it online with your mapping library. And then if it's day, then this is a fabulous utility. It's been around for, I don't know, I mean, maybe 10 years or so, but I've used it to create a tile set, and takes the input and it kicks out tiles, puts it in a folder, and you can use Leaflet to view it. And so this is a current view. I'll go up and take a look at it, and you can also pull down the geotiffs for the entire U.S. and pause at Kentucky, but today is not it's not sunset yet, obviously. So let's go up and take a look. And so this would be just kind of the front end of what we currently have. And so this is the time, the sunset time. I didn't convert it for the computer being out west, but this does give a sense of the change in time going from the east to the west, the perceived change in time for me at least. So this is 11:54 a.m. currently, and 3 o'clock there, so that's what it looks. It's nice and clear. And then we've got downloads, and those are the webcams that are across. There's only one in Kentucky. These guys are in Tennessee and North Carolina, and that was yesterday's animation. This is on Cold Mountain. But you can enlarge this and take a look at what's happening here. Zoom out. And so this obviously the west here, and we can enable the color, and this is kind of a direction that I think I would like to pursue, is figuring out a different way to, or other ways, multiple ways to create this colored base map. And so in the little time that I have, let me see. Okay. So I'll just finish up quickly here and then go on to an example if we have time. So 1 week is 8 gigs, too big, so I can't quite archive it. And so thank you, NACIS, and let me see if I can to show an example. So I'm up on the server, and command line's cool because even though you might have a very small internet connection, slow connection, this is a pretty efficient way to do something. So I just basically start with bash, and I've got this guy. This is an example, and it just runs, and now it'll go grab. Let's see here. Such. Well, anyway, I will show a demonstration if you want. I think I'm out of time. But thank you, and I'm glad to be here.